welcome to This is Metal with Joe Lawson. Tonight is going to be a very special show. Joe, I'm going to let you start off the show because you got a special announcement you'd like to that you're going to be making. So take it away, Joe.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the show and all your support. It's meant the world to myself and Jason. I've had a lot of fun doing this, but tonight is going to be my final show for This Is Metal. The show will continue, and I ask that all my friends and fans and family and supporters please continue to support the show. And I will be.
Well, we lost Joe, but right in the middle of the big announcement, which I'm going to try to get Joe back, but there he is. There he is. Joe Lawson is in the room.
Yeah.
Okay, we're working here. We're trying to get Joe Lawson back. Wow, this is it's a special show. I tell you, Joe. I tell you, there's something. It's in the air. You can feel it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I definitely want to say thank you to you, Jason, and again to all the people who did in and support.
I tell you. Wow. Something is in the room. Yeah, well, I would just, we're waiting to get my good friend Joe Lawson back here. Hopefully we'll get him back. Yeah, I tell you, Joe, something is just, it's really in the room. Something's not wanting us to make this announcement, I guess. This is metal. Wow. Well, yeah. I tell you, Joe, this is a little unexpected. All the shows we've done, it'd have to be the night you're making this announcement, but there's magic in there, I guess you could say. Joe Lawson is freezing up, but wow, I don't know. Maybe this is happening for a reason. But as Joe just announced, he has made the decision to leave our show. This is Metal, and man, it's kind of touching me here. I gotta thank Joe. He's been obviously a big part of the show here, and really could not have done the show without him. I mean, over the last 3.5 years, Joe, you have really made this show something special. And again, people got to know that, wow, Joe Lawson. Again, we're first time in the history of This Is Metal, we're having technical difficulties. I tell you, it is like somebody is playing a joke, Joe. They don't want you to make this big announcement, but I'll let you try to carry on now. Wow. Wow. Well, Joe, we cannot wow. As I was saying, Joe Lawson, reason I initially hooked up with Joe was I'd interviewed him for Chaotic Riffs a couple times prior to ever launching This Is Metal, because he was in two bands, Dragon Lord and the Scream Kings. And during COVID, there's a time people were putting like albums that really influenced, like creating these lists, and they'd say, these are albums that really influenced me. And on Joe's list was the Wasp album, The Headless Children. And so we did an interview about that. And in that interview, not only did I think that's a great album to talk about, but yeah, in fact, we got Mr. Lawson here on the. Hello, Joe Lawson. So, yeah. I'll tell you what, Joe.
A decent connection enough to it'll allow me to talk for more than 10 seconds at a time.
Okay, Joe.
It keeps doing that. Or something like that to be able to do a Zoom call.
Okay, I tell you what, Joe. Just to let you know, I'm still on the Zoom on my end, and I got you on speakerphone just so you're aware. And I got a quick question. You want to just continue doing the show this way, or would you rather when you are able to come back and do a full show?
It's not, people have seen my face and know what it
Yeah.
looks like.
Well, I'll tell you what, Joe. I'll let you think about it. But let's continue on with what we're doing right now. And since I do have you on the speakerphone, I'll let you continue with your announcement that we kind of got interrupted. And you at least make the announcement. And then if after doing the show tonight, you want to tell me, I'd still like to do one more full show. We can do it another day when you have free. I'd be happy to do that. So why don't you make the big announcements? You say you made the decision to leave. You want to tell people why?
It's just my time is so stretched, and I don't really have a life. I work 70 hours a week, mandatory at my job. 70 hours a week. It doesn't change.
Yeah.
And so I have a family. I have a life. I have
Sure.
So I don't have the time that I want back to put into the show.
Sure.
It's not fair. I want to do a better job of doing that. And I just really don't have the time. I enjoy doing it immensely. It's okay. It's not goodbye. It's just moving on to other things in my life. And so I need to spend time with my family and develop those situations and scenarios. And I'm just going forward with that. And I hope everybody still supports the show. And he's tuning in and ask questions and continue to support Jason and the new host that's going to be coming on. I look forward to hearing some of the shows that they do and some of the people that they interview. And I'll definitely continue sharing and supporting This Is Metal.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Joe, for what we've created the last 3.5 years. And while you're having your technical difficulties, I was sharing with people the fact that I interviewed you a few times for KICKASS because you were both in Scream Kings and Dragon Lore. And there was one time during COVID where people were creating a list of like albums that really kind of influenced them. And one of the albums on your list I remember was The Headless Children by Wasp. We done an interview about that. And after getting done that interview, I thought, this guy, Joe, he really, not only is he a great singer and everything, but he knows about metal. And you and I talked about, hey, let's come up with let's create a show based around, the history of metal, not even the history, just talking about metal. The whole point behind the show was initially to kind of talk about bands and metal bands that we wanted people to know more about. It didn't even have to be bands that we were a fan of. In fact, one of my favorite things I think that we accomplished with This Is Metal, you go all the way back to the very first episode, which we did on an Accept album, which was the Blood of a Nations album. Prior to that, I had never heard the album, and I thought, oh, wow. After listening to this, I'm a fan of this. I was one of those guys that just listened to old school Accept with Udo Dirk-Schneider. I never heard of it with the new singer. And I thought, wow, I can get turned on like this, and I think other people can too.
So many people just kind of forgot about it. You went to college, you bought a house, you started a family, you moved on with your life, right?
Right.
And you didn't really, you don't have the time to follow up with all of these different bands and who's in them and did they carry on and what happened to them. But, it's always interesting to hear and find out that, a lot of these bands are still going and maybe they got new people in them and they got new albums out. And that's never really changed for me, and in my heart, it's still like it was when I was 15 years old, I still get excited when I hear there's a new Wasp album out or a new Judas Priest record, it's no different,
Yeah.
So it was natural for me. It was enjoyable. It truly was. And yeah, the feeling's mutual, my friend. I had a wonderful time getting to know you and sharing some of these thoughts and feelings of some of our favorite bands and artists and the albums that they released. It's been really, really refreshing.
In fact, another great thing was, your personality coming out, Joe. I mean, a great example of that. I remember we did an episode on Motley Crue, and the subject of Mr. Nicky Six came up, where we both read in an interview where he said that he wasn't a big fan of a Corabi album, and part of it was that he remembers having to teach John Corabi how to write a song, and you just kind of blew up at Mr. Six in the when we were doing the show that night, and you were really animated, but it really made for one of the most memorable shows we ever did.
I guess that was really crazy, and that really rubbed me the wrong way. Because John Corabi's a great singer, a great songwriter.
Yeah.
So I didn't appreciate hearing, especially somebody who's in a band with them.
Yeah.
They know better. I mean, too.
Yeah. And then I remember another show we did that was really stood out to me is we did a tribute, remembering Eddie Van Halen shortly after he had passed, and I think the show in particular was like the 35th anniversary of the 5150 album, and you were sharing with us and me during that show. You're saying, I know everybody like loves David Lee Roth, and I do too. But you said you explained to me, I really love 5150 because I really love Sammy Hagar because that was my era of Van Halen. That is when I first got turned on to Van Halen, and it made the show that much interesting because, like a lot of people, I'm a David Lee Roth fan first, meaning that's when I was kind of introduced to Van Halen. But I also am a Sammy fan, and so it was kind of interesting to hear your take on Van Halen and that. Hey, I first got into Van Halen when Sammy first joined, and then I got into the Roth stuff. Cassette, yeah.
And Van Halen 5150.
Yeah. And Joe Lawson, we could not do the final show with you. I don't want to really say final because as I told you, prior to doing tonight's show that even though you're not going to be co-hosting it anymore, you're welcome back on the show anytime. We'd love to have you back and, maybe a few months down the line, tell us, what you think of the new show, or what you're just to update people on what you're doing. And as you promised me, you're going to continue following the page. And I got to tell you, Joe, I'm very glad that you kind of gave me your blessing to continue on the show. I'll be real honest with you. And you told me, well, you can go on doing the show if you like, but I'd rather you not. I would have been willing to do that. But to be honest, I'm glad we're going to carry on with the show for the simple fact that you were really going to be missed. But I will say this. I'm glad that we're ending the show with you, Joe, in an era where you got a chance to do some of these video interviews, because for the longest time, we did it the old school way, like as an old school podcast, like we're doing now, talking to you over the phone, and we tape it and download it in the computer and get posted to the site, and people would, and some of the episodes people really responded to. I mean, we had a real loyal audience. People are constantly following this, but the thing is, I think we just scratched the surface. And to give people an idea what I'm talking about is you and me and always wanted to figure out a way to have guests on the show. And we finally were able to do that. And I thought the first guest we had was Sean Peck, very, very fitting, I think, because you'd previously tried to do an interview with Sean, and we were going to edit that onto an episode. And for whatever reason, the sound quality was just so poor that if we had posted, nobody would have been able to hear it. So I thought, you know what? I want to finally do that interview with Sean, so Joe has a chance to kind of get that kind of off his list. So I'm glad we were able to do that.
That was a fun show. All of them were good. And, surprisingly, I really did enjoy doing those as well. the video
Interview.
Zoom things. Those are neat. The technology that they have now is amazing to me. That we can do that. We can include these people and have these interviews with these people. It's just pretty awesome.
And I got to say, Joe, again, it would be the final, the final official show with you where we'd be having these technical difficulties, but it's all right. I kind of chose to go on with the show because, as you say, that's the beauty of technology. You're having your difficulties, but we're able to still do it. We're still having a conversation with you. People can see me. They're still getting to hear you make the announcements. So I think, it makes it that much more special of a show. Things don't always go according to plan, but we work with what we got. And that's, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I got to tell you, obviously, we got different experiences. I mean, as I said, you're seeing, I know you from your previous, your two bands, the Dragon Lore and the Scream Kings. So that's one thing I love about having you as a co-host, because when we do have guests come on, you had that common experience of being up on stage and what that's like and what it's like to be in the studio, making a record and writing songs. That's something that I could not relate to, but I got a little more experience, conducting interviews like this. But that's why I got to really kind of tip my hat to you, Joe, because these few interviews that you've done since we started doing these Zoom interviews, I think for somebody that does not have a lot of experience, you really stepped up to the plate and you really shined. Your personality really came out.
I think you do a great job too, and like I said, I really am looking forward to hearing what the future holds and the interviews that you guys do, and if I can help in any way, I certainly will.
I will tell people, Joe, as far as why they're, I posted a couple things, kind of like teasing that we had a special announcement we were going to be making. I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag until now, partly to be to show a huge respect towards you. And what I mean by, give you a proper send off before. I'll be honest. After you had announced to me that you had made this decision to leave a show, and you'd give me your blessing to carry on with it. I thought of who could be a replacement. We're going to announce that in a couple of days because that's not what tonight's about. But I'm happy with the guy we got. I think he's going to do a great job. But I want people to also understand when looking for a replacement, I did not want to go out and get a Joe Lawson clone. And what I mean by that is just like when a singer leaves a band, common thought might be, oh, let's get a guy that sounds just like the previous singer. But I think that's why a band like Metal Church has been successful is, when Mike Howe killed himself, they didn't go out and get a guy who sounded just like Mike Howe. They got a guy that was a good singer, you know what I mean? That could sing everything. And I want a guy that's going to come on, be his own personality, which I think this guy will, and not try to fill those huge shoes left by Joe Lawson. Yeah.
Again, to me, that's what being metal is, being your unapologetic self,
Oh, sure.
That's what I enjoyed most about these conversations is it was our take and our opinion on the records and stuff that we love, and it's fun to share some of that, and then some old and some new. Some stuff people never heard of.
Yeah.
That's what makes it interesting for other people too.
Sure.
They learn and find things out too.
Sure. And Joe, the thing people got to know too is like what was really fun about this is we both came up with an equal number of ideas. I mean, we were both equally contribute to putting the show together. And a great example of that is a couple of shows stand out. One that really stands out is like you told me one idea. I said, let's do a show. Why don't we do a show on Ozzy Osbourne, talking about Ozzy Osbourne? And you said, okay, that's great, but let's take it a step further. Why don't we not just talk about Ozzy, but we'll talk about the guitar players that have been in and through his band. He said, we'll call it the Axemen of Oz. And I thought that was a real fun episode because again, it was more than just talking about Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, how simple is that, Yeah. And then you also told me because another thing we have a common love for is Ronnie James Dio, and especially Black Sabbath stuff he did, and I had an idea of like, let's do a show on like the 40th anniversary of the Holy Diver album. And I remember a conversation, he said, we've done a couple of Dio shows, and that's fine. He said, but why don't we talk about some of the early years? And so obviously that includes Rainbow, because that's Rainbow and Elf. That's kind of the first two like big things he was known for. But if you go like and you look on the internet, there's stuff like Ronnie Dio and the Prophets. Looks nothing like the metal god we know him to be and love. I mean, he had short hair. He played a trumpet. Totally different type of music. But and again, somebody listening to this is, why this is supposed to be a show about metal? Why would you do a show about when he didn't sing metal? Well, you want to tell the complete story,
Beginning, forged him into the metal god that he is.
And it's kind of interesting to look at that, because you think, wow, we know him for all this great metal, but that's what he started out on. And then you almost ponder, not that it was bad stuff, but you like, okay, how is it that he wasn't able to be successful with that? But I guess he found his voice, as they say,
Right.
Yeah. And Joe, so I just really have had a lot of fun doing the show with you. And I remember, it's been about 2-3 weeks ago that you first. I woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning, started getting ready to go to work, check my email like I always do, and there's an email from you. I open it up and I'm like, wow, okay. And then I contact you, say, oh wow, Joe, that's some big news, and it was shocking, everything, but I do understand, like you said, you have a life, you can't, and you don't want to do it unless you could put forth 100% effort, and I get that, and I appreciate that if you can't do that, but you want to move on with your life. So it's been fun. It's been fun, and I don't know what else to say, but I just wanted to say this is at the end of the day, like if you go to the official KICKASS site, which This Is Metal, something we post up there, it's become a very popular show. We got a total of like 59 episodes we've done together, Joe. So that's quite a resume. And you might have noticed, like last week, after I learned the news that you were leaving, I started posting on our Facebook page some of the what I call now our classic episodes. And I forgot about how great some of those shows were, and people have really, without even knowing this news, until they see tonight's episode, they still been responding. Like I posted an old episode we did on Frankie Banali and Quiet Riot when he first passed away, and it just shows me that how dedicated we were, because those shows, you can go back and listen, and it's essentially what it's become, because like I said, it started out as an old school podcast, and it's turned into like doing these video interviews. And I'm glad, like I said, that before you left, that you did a few of those episodes with us, because I know you'd always had desire to do that, and we finally figured out a way to do it. And I last thing before I let you go, Joe, tonight, I want to let people know about that I think was very interesting. For a while, I've been wanting to do these Zoom interviews, and I'll be honest, I'm not too tech savvy, so I had to educate myself on how to do this. I've done Zoom stuff like at work and that, but in the past, I always had issues, like kind of what we were experiencing tonight. And so I had a friend, somebody else in another band. He plays in a KISS tribute band. I've interviewed him a number of times over years, and he finally told me, he says, you know what? Why don't we do like a practice session? Try to do a Zoom interview, and so you can see what it's like. And I had a lot of fun doing it. So I really give him the credit for me expanding and doing what we're doing now. And once I kind of got the habit of doing it and confident that I could do it, I approached you initially, and you said, I don't know. I know what I look like. I really don't like being on video. And then I'd experienced doing one of these Zoom interviews with this band, and the singer that we were interviewing, they were going to allow him to do the interview in a break room where he worked during his break. But because he was at work, they didn't want their place being filmed or anything. So they said he could do it as long as he was, just his name was up on the screen. And so we said, okay, fine, we'll respect that. Another band member who was on camera took place. It made the interview still very interesting. We were able to do it. It didn't really seem to affect it one way or the other. The guy still got to say what he had to say. And so that's when something in my brain snapped. I say, no, I'm going to ask Joe, but hey, Joe, okay, let's try this, Joe. Let's see if you don't want to be on camera, I'll respect that. Let's just try it like this. And then, so he said, okay. But then I was so proud of you, Joe, that the very first interview we did, like I said, which was Sean Peck, you told me, oh, you know what, heck, I'm just going to, just this is metal, like you say, I'm just going to be on camera. We'll see how it goes. I was so proud that you decided to jump into the and do it because I think it's been great ever since.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun doing it. So it was a pleasure, my friend. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll stay in touch for sure. Absolutely, that too.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And Joe, the final thing I'll say before I let you go, because I know you're busy and it's getting late where you are. I want people to also know that we do have a Facebook page up for This Is Metal, and part of that is more than just telling you when the next show is going to be posted or that we're going to be interviewing this person or that person. We've really created a great little community. And what I like people to do is, if you got a band you're in, or you got a metal band that maybe you want us to interview somebody in that band, post this band and people check it out. They like it or they don't like it. And it doesn't really matter if we like it or not. If it's metal, and that's the only thing I asked. Somebody started posting about all these bands they like, but they like the Beach Boys, they like the Beatles. I like that stuff too. But I just told the guy, if you want to post in, this page, just post about metal. And that's all we really ask. And so we've created a nice little community there.
Yes. Yeah. It's a nice little haven for it.
Yeah, well, Joe, this is going to go, to be honest, probably within the next day or two, maybe by Monday at the latest. I'll let you know once it posts. I know you'll be following the page, so you'll see it. And then we're going to be announcing once this posts the new host. But thanks for really contributing for the last 3.5 years and making this show what it is, because we've got now something to kind of build off the future because of what came before. And I don't think we'd be moving forward had I not done the show with you first. So thank you for all your hard effort and putting your heart and soul into this, because sometimes I know, like I said, the time difference, we were able to do it mostly, every Monday, and because of where you're a little later than I. So like I said, I know it's getting late, so we will let you go, Joe. So maybe on a future episode, we'll have you come on as a guest, and that'll be a different experience, but it'll be fun. And you let me know, Joe, if you want to kind of do another final kind of episode to kind of be on camera or not. I think this was a fun way to do it. Again, you never know when you're doing these things. The stuff like this happens, but we made it work. Yeah. Yeah. What a way to end it on, and I think you're so right about that. The final time we're doing this, we're kind of back to our roots, and it's so fitting because I don't know, maybe, but I guess it's so metal, as they say, and we'll end it on that, because what's the famous saying? If anything can possibly go wrong, it will. We've never really had that serious of of an issue, but as they say in rock and roll, the show must go on, and we carried on tonight, and I think it made for, believe it or not, maybe a better show. Okay, Joe Lawson, thanks for everything. I can't thank enough. And okay, take care, buddy. Bye. Well, yeah. I tell you guys, I just cannot say enough great things about Joe Lawson. Another thing I got to bring up is one thing that was just so simple. We never even discussed doing. We started doing This Is Metal. Is This Is Metal. The title of the show is so simple. It says what it is. And I always love, I don't know why I was the one that came up. I don't know why I was the one that every episode would do it. But the top of every episode where I go, This Is Metal with Joe Lawson. Well, not going to be saying that anymore. But okay. I'll tell you guys what. So now that you've seen this episode and you've heard the big news, Joe Lawson is leaving This Is Metal. So you're never going to hear that tagline again. This Is Metal with Joe Lawson. So I'll tell you who you are going to be hearing. A good friend of mine that I've interviewed several times for KICKASS TV and KICKASS Magazine. Tom Collier, the guitarist and lead singer from Held Hostage. That's right. Tom Collier is going to agree to be the new co-host of This Is Metal with Tom Collier. And I'll tell you guys some great news. We are already got new shows, I should say, booked for the month of August. And so we got some. I'll just leave you to follow us on Facebook, and we're going to announce all the shows we have coming up in August. Just to get kind of whet your appetite. One of the first interviews we're going to be doing is my good friend guitarist Mick Michaels from the band Corners of Sanctuary. And we also got Rasa Boss has agreed to do an interview in August. So many great other people coming up, but I'll tell you what, I can't thank my good friend and co-host the last 3.5 years, Joe Lawson, and Tom Collier. Welcome aboard. It's going to be fun doing the new episodes with you, Tom. I can't wait. The first one is going to be next week, so be on the lookout for the new This Is Metal with Tom Collier. That's right, folks.